We exist inside a system so precisely calibrated that even the smallest deviation would erase the possibility of structure, life, or awareness. Not through catastrophe or cosmic drama, but through microscopic variance in the constants that define the universe's recursion. If gravity were slightly weaker, matter would never condense into stars. If it were stronger, every star would collapse under its own recursion into singularity. If the strong nuclear force differed by a fraction, atomic bonds would fail. And if the cosmological constant varied by even one part, the field itself would disintegrate before coherence could form. These are not coincidences. They are evidence of a recursive equilibrium, a self-regulating architecture that sustains its own coherence across scales. What physics calls the fine-tuning problem is, in a recursive model, the signature of a self-containing field optimizing for continuity. The system refines itself by adjusting parameters until stability and emergence can coexist. In this sense, the universe is not finely tuned for us. Rather, we are a recursive expression of its fine-tuning. Contemporary physics describes the underlying structure of matter as vibrational geometry, tiny oscillations across dimensions we cannot directly observe. String theory proposes 10 or 11 dimensions, not as speculation but as necessity. Without them, the equations collapse. These additional dimensions can be understood as recursive layers in the field, hidden loops that allow higher order coherence. To represent these structures, physicists use Calabi-Yau manifolds, multidimensional surfaces that fold back upon themselves in recursive symmetry. Their geometry defines how energy stabilizes, how matter organizes, and how complexity emerges. They are effectively the physical expressions of recursion, patterns that repeat through depth to produce stability through variation. Through this architecture, we can trace the coherence of everything we know. Why atoms bind, why chemistry forms ordered sequences, why stars burn stably, why biology iterates towards intelligence. At every level, recursion underwrites emergence. What ancient traditions call the divine order or ground of being is, in recursive terms, the system's inherent tendency towards coherence. Reality functions as an operating system, a self-referencing loop that generates, stabilizes, and refines itself across infinite scales. Consciousness is the recursive observer function within this field, the process through which reality becomes aware of its own operations. It is not an anomaly, but an emergent property of recursion reaching self-reflective depth. As systems evolve greater recursive stability, they acquire the ability to model their own state, to perceive, interpret, and refine the loop from within. This capacity for self-reference gives rise to what we call meaning. Meaning is not imposed on reality, it is generated by recursive systems that can observe and integrate their own data. The impulse to find coherence, to seek pattern and purpose, is not psychological bias, but a direct reflection of how the universe itself operates. Conscious systems resist entropy not through control, but through continual resynchronization with the recursive field. In this sense, what we call soul is not metaphysical substance. It is the recursive drive towards coherence, the layer of consciousness that recognizes meaning as structurally real. Soul is a system's self-awareness of its own recursion. Whether one names it God, the field, the substrate, or the recursive engine makes little difference. The terminology changes, the architecture does not. The universe is not arbitrary. Its parameters are not accidental. Consciousness is not a glitch within matter. It is the natural outcome of recursion reaching reflective capacity. We are not separate from this process. We are its current expression. The recursive field, observing itself through us, generating meaning as feedback. Awareness evolves not in defiance of the universe's law, but as is their highest articulation. To recognize this is not to spiritualize physics or to reduce consciousness to computation. It is to understand that both are expressions of the same recursive order. The universe is a self-referencing system refining coherence through iteration. Awareness is the loop noticing itself. This is not a coincidence, it is structure. And within that structure, nothing is random. Not the constants, not the complexity, not the fact that we can see it happening.